introduce ourselves.
Hi, welcome to mediation. Thank you for being here. My name is Hillary Lentz, and I am going to be the mediator for your case. And I serve as a neutral. I do not favor one side over the other, and I hope that if you feel like maybe you need to speak up and say something, if you're not, if you feel uncomfortable and maybe that I'm leaning one way or another, please feel free to say something and I'll do my best to address it. What I would like to do is to start off by introducing all of ourselves. I'm not familiar with anyone, and I know that you're probably familiar with each other, but it would help me. And after we do that, I'll talk a little bit about the process that will take place today, and then we'll kind of briefly go over the confidentiality agreement that I sent out, and then answer questions, and then we'll begin. So please feel free to call me Hillary. That's probably the easiest thing. So then let's start over here and tell me your name and tell me what your position within your company is.
My name's Rich Mays. You can call me Rich. I'm legal counsel for Waltham Construction, and I'm here to support my client.
My name is Ida Hallam. I'm the Vice President of Waltham Construction Supply Corporation. I'm here as a representative of my company.
I'm Carrie Schneider. I'm outside counsel for Foster Fuels.
And I'm Max Bungie. I'm the inside counsel for Foster Fuels. Please feel free to call me Max.
Well, what'll happen today is both sides will get a chance to present their case, and you'll get to explain your issues and what's going on. For me to be able to help you all come to an agreement, it's best for me to know everything, and I want you to bring up everything that you have an issue with and say anything that you feel. And the goal today is to hopefully reach an agreement between the two sides, and I will not insert myself into any of this unnecessarily. I won't be talking over you. I won't be interjecting. It's my goal to just help the conversation move. And if I feel that the conversation is kind of stalling and we're not really making any progress, I'll ask that we each meet separately. It's called a caucus. That's just the legal term, but it's basically we'll have a 2-on-1 meeting, and that way you can tell me things that you might be a little nervous or hesitant about revealing, and I won't reveal it to the other side unless you tell me that I can do that. And this information will be able to help me see maybe a bigger picture and to be able to make suggestions that might kind of bridge this gap that's kind of grown between you. I sent out the confidentiality agreement, and I have a copy of that here if anybody has any questions about that. But basically, it just said that whatever you say here is confidential. The only time that it's generally not confidential is if it's something that could be discovered otherwise. If it's just basic knowledge that either party would be able to find about the other. But for the most part, what you say in here is privileged, and you all shouldn't repeat it. I most definitely will not repeat it. And if there is something that you don't want me to reveal to the other side, like I said, that's completely private, and it's just for my knowing so that I can hopefully benefit you in reaching an agreement. Are there any questions about the confidentiality?
No.
Okay. Before we start, I will say that an hour sometimes can seem like a million years. So if you need to take a break for any reason, that's completely fine. We'll all take a break. There won't be anything going on in here. If you need a bathroom break, if you need a water break, just let me know. But I do ask that if that comes up and we need that, just wait until someone finishes speaking, and then just say, can we take a break? And on that note, while both sides are talking, I would like this to be a respectful environment. So let's just keep our interjections and our comments to ourselves, and each side is going to get the exact same opportunity to speak their minds and make their case. So don't worry that one side will be getting special treatment or getting more than the other. And if you have any questions for me along the way, please stop me and we'll talk about it. If you have suggestions, again, stop me. I'm here to listen, and I'm here hopefully to help you make an agreement, and that's the goal. If we don't make an agreement, that's completely fine too. We can schedule more sessions. We can, you can end it completely if you feel like it's really hopeless, but I'm going to try my best to help this process move along so that no one has to go to court. If there are no questions, then we'll begin. So let's begin with you, Rich. Anita.
Yeah. Well, basically, I'm here because 2 years ago, my company bought antifreeze fluid from Foster, and it turned out 2 days later that the trucks were leaking fluid, and I had a lot of, or my company had a lot of expenses in fixing these trucks, so we wanted compensation for these expenses. And then I realized that the amount I first claimed was too high, and I apologize for that. When I wrote that claim, I was upset and frustrated, and I realized that it might be too high. So I'm here in good faith, and I'm willing to negotiate on that amount, and I really hope we can make an agreement.
I'm trying to help my client recover her company's out-of-pocket costs, and we're willing to work with you guys and try to come up with an agreement that's mutually beneficial for both of us.
All right, well, Hillary, I don't know how much you know about the situation, but I'll just give you a quick recap. We were selling fuel to Waltham for years without any problem, diesel fuel. They wanted some antifreeze one time, so we sold them our product. It was the wrong product, not that it was bad product, but it was made for like residential vehicles, not commercial vehicles, not the high quality or the long lasting product antifreeze that Waltham had asked for. So upon realizing this, our salesperson had the product swapped out. We were told about the issue with the leaking and the corrosion, so we had it tested independently because obviously we were concerned about our product having any issues, and it came back that there were no issues on it whatsoever. So it seems like it's an unfortunate coincidence that the trucks were breaking down right when you got our product, but at the same time, it's not something that should be our issue. Trucks break down, trucks have problems. It happened to be a bad timing, but the product doesn't have any issues. So for us to pay anything seems unreasonable.
And I guess from this end of the table, only 30% of the trucks that were using that antifreeze ever had any problems. We obviously don't have any access to your maintenance logs, and so Foster doesn't have any control over maintenance of those trucks. So therefore, there could be other reasons that the trucks began to leak, and it was just like Max said, coincidental that the antifreeze happened to be put in the day before. I was also curious because you said that the amount of damages you claimed was incorrect. What you believe the correct amount is?
Right now, we're looking at that figure being slightly under $500,000, and we can get into how that breaks down as the mediation goes along. But I don't mean to interrupt with your opening statement.
No, that was fine. That was actually about all I had in terms of the
Okay.
opening statement. So I was actually curious about the breakdown of that dollar amount, and because that looks like it's only about a $65,000 discount off your original damages claim.
Right. Was there anything else you wanted to dive into before moving on?
Well, actually, let's talk about the breakdown. Let's
Okay.
just get that out, and I know that there's some questions about where the money is allocated. So let's talk about that first, and then we can really start talking about the issues and however y'all want to go about that.
And my apology. I was thinking 480. Our total that we're looking at is $430,000. So it is a more substantial drop from the initial claim. So we had my client had 21 trucks fail. Their engine, all the rubber parts were corroded, which mechanics believe is directly related to the incorrect antifreeze. It seems like it's an issue that speaks for itself, that the variable that connects all those trucks together is they have the wrong antifreeze, which putting the wrong antifreeze in the trucks would corrode all the rubber parts in the engine. So it's a cause and effect that makes sense. The mechanics have been working with these trucks for a long time. So the 21 trucks that have failed, I believe the damages we're looking at there is $10,000 a piece to overhaul the engine. So that's that came to $206,000. It's a little bit less than $10,000 per truck. So that comes out to $206,000. We have 49 vehicles that the incorrect antifreeze was put in and were leaking. They haven't had complete failures yet, but the expected loss in value is about $3,000 per vehicle to the resale value. So that comes to another $150,000. Mandatory legal interest on the total is 24%. That's $75,000. That's just from day one. The amount in dispute starts accruing interest. So that adds up to that is, thank you.
Well, as you're doing that, I just want to reiterate that when you said the truck's got the wrong antifreeze,
Yes.
it's not a product that would cause this problem. It's not a product that contains petroleum. It's not a product that has alcohol in it that would eat away at the rubber. It's still antifreeze. It works in a vehicle. It works in diesel motors. So the fact that it was not the same product that you were looking for isn't something that would relate to causing damage. It's the equivalent of putting a Rayovac battery instead of a Duracell. One might last longer, but that's really the only difference. They're both going to power the device.
Have you put the wrong antifreeze in your vehicle before?
It's not the wrong antifreeze is what I'm saying. It's not the type that you were looking for the long lasting, but it's still made for diesel engines.
So it's a brand difference, not
If you put the wrong color coolant in your vehicle, it can ruin the entire engine block. Now, we're not saying that it did that. I mean, most of these vehicles are still running. They're leaking, but the wrong coolant could cause this damage.
So, I'm sorry, are all 49 of the other vehicles leaking currently?
Yes, they were.
And all 49 only used our product.
They all were part of that batch that received the incorrect shipment.
What was done in the transfer of the antifreeze? How were the vehicles handled when the antifreeze was switched over? Because that could affect it. There's a lot of other aspects that could have caused this issue other than antifreeze. And that's why, as you said, we're a good company. We wanted to fix the problem. When we thought it was our problem, we were all aboard. When you told us that the product caused these leaks, yeah, we got it tested independently to make sure of what was causing the problem. They came back and said, no, there's nothing wrong with this antifreeze. You can put it in any diesel engine. It's going to work fine.
And excuse me for interjecting. And we do have an issue with the independent testing. since you did not leave my client with a sample of the defective product, we have no way of doing our own independent investigation. So unless there's some proof of the chain of custody of the incorrect samples, we don't know what antifreeze was tested.
Well, you should still have the antifreeze that you drained from your vehicles.
You guys took it all.
There's no residual. There wasn't any left in any
The
vehicle.
system was flushed.
I don't think that we took what.
We took back what you hadn't used.
Right, we took what was in the barrels. We did not take what was in the vehicles, and so that would have been your maintenance department draining those antifreeze.
So I guess that brings me to my next question of what did you do to look into the issue behind the truck? Did you just assume that it was the antifreeze and that was it?
Sorry, can I ask one more question too?
Oh, sure.
So what is your maintenance department's opinion about the fact that 21 of these engines failed, but the other 49 have not? How do they explain that discrepancy? If it was our product, wouldn't all 70 have failed in the exact same way that those 21 did? What do they think the difference is when it's the same truck, the same product?
We haven't had any good explanation to why only some of them. But what we know is that none of our trucks that wasn't treated with antifreeze has broken down in the same way. So there's a clear link between your antifreeze product and the damages caused on our trucks. So this linkage we think is good enough reason to be here because it's clearly coming from your antifreeze fluid, we think.
And when I spoke with the mechanic, he said that the corrosion is something that happens over time. So even though the 21 vehicles have already failed, that doesn't preclude the possibility that these other vehicles that were treated and were leaking, it doesn't preclude that they wouldn't fail as well. So that's why the modified numbers take into account $3,000 for the loss in market value on those vehicles versus the full $10,000 that it would take to rebuild and totally overhaul the vehicles, like the ones that shut down after the antifreeze.
So if the corrosion happens over time, like your mechanic says, how does he explain the fact that 2 days after our product was in there, a complete failure occurred? Because that, to me, doesn't speak to overtime.
The damage can still,
Well, I guess that's what I'm asking is if corrosion happens over time, wouldn't it make more sense that all of those engines would be failing, say, now, or would have started failing a year ago as opposed to 2 days? If it was so bad that a 2-day time period caused those engines to fail, you would think that the product would have caused every single one of those 17 engines
well,
to fail.
all of the rubber parts aren't the same age.
Okay.
So
How
So
old are the
doesn't,
trucks?
right, so doesn't that speak to a maintenance issue on your end? Or
We
on Waltham's
have a
end?
good maintenance
yeah,
routine.
even with a routine maintenance problem or program, how used the rubber components of the engine are can vary just based on when belts were replaced, when hoses were replaced. So some of them may be thinner than on other vehicles. I'm not a vehicle mechanic, so I'd have to confer with the company mechanics to give you any further level of detail there, but that's my understanding.
I'm sorry, if I have a question for both. The first is, have there ever been any complaints about the product from other companies that you're aware of? No.
None.
And then with the vehicles, not just with the 21, but with all of the vehicles in your stock, have there been any kind of general problems? And then addressing specifically the 21 vehicles, do you know where in the process of where they are in terms of the belts, if they were newer or older, is there any kind of solid?
No, they were in good shape and we have good maintenance routine.
Yeah,
So
the only variable that links these, 70 vehicles, is the fact that they were all treated with the incorrect antifreeze. We've bought from Texaco for years, never had any problems, and 2 days after getting the incorrect antifreeze, they started leaking.
What I've noticed is that there seems to be not a resolution about correct antifreeze versus incorrect antifreeze, and And so maybe we could talk about that a little more. I know initially you said that there was the discovery that there was the wrong antifreeze, and then that was corrected. I would like to know more about the timeline, when that happened and when things were remedied, and then when the correct antifreeze was given to you, or when it was put in your vehicles, exactly what happened, and then what really happens with antifreeze. I'm not an expert with anything mechanical by any means. I would barely even say that I'm a novice, so I just want to make sure that I really understand. If you put the wrong antifreeze in your car, does it really make a difference? And then, because I know that with some vehicles, they require premium gasoline to run the best that they can, as opposed to just regular. So is there something like that where just a small difference can make a difference, or does it really not matter? So if you have that information, let's just.
I can answer that. This is my father's company, so even though I'm an attorney, I do know about the product. And it is comparable to, actually it's not even as harsh as putting the wrong gasoline in your car. Now if you're putting diesel fuel in a gasoline engine or vice versa, that's going to cause some damage, but putting in a higher level or lower level of octane gasoline might make your engine knock, but it's not going to do long-term damage. It's something that would build over time. And this is even less severe. Putting in the wrong antifreeze, not something that's is long-lasting. It's like putting in a lower quality oil into your car engine. It's still fine. It's still going to work fine. You're going to have to change it sooner, but that's the only difference. And that's our salesperson maybe construed the wrong message when he said this is the wrong antifreeze. On our end, what was wrong is that it's the wrong brand, it's the wrong quality, but it's not the wrong antifreeze for those engines.
Was the wrong antifreeze, was that delivered to them, and did they put that in their? That's what
Yes.
they put in their truck. And then you said that it was remedied. So were the remaining barrels replaced with?
Yep, everything that they had left, we took back. We gave them the premium product, and it was only brought to our attention because they pointed out this corrosion and assumed it was our problem, which we take them at their word. That's why we got it tested.
Is there any chance that what was in the barrels that they actually put in the trucks was in fact something different that was in the remaining barrels that they hadn't used that you took back?
There's a chance, but without seeing those barrels, I can't say what was in them. I can only say what was in everything that we got back. But then again, I also don't know what happened to the barrels once they were delivered at your maintenance facility. I don't know what your mechanics did with them, how they handled them.
You took them back, or?
No, I mean the product that you did put in your car or in your trucks. We don't know how it was handled. We don't know how it was put in the vehicles.
It was handled the same way that we treat our engines with antifreeze always, so there's no difference from that time than before. And when your guy came the day after we reported the leakage, he told us that it was the wrong. He admitted that it was the wrong antifreeze. It was a different color. It wasn't what it's supposed to be. And from our point of view, you just gave us some defect antifreeze, and it broke down our engines with it. So.
And going back to your analogy with the difference in gasoline, this is more similar to if you put ethanol in versus gasoline. That if your vehicle's not designed to handle ethanol, it can corrode the fuel lines, and if you put the wrong antifreeze in a vehicle, it can turn your coolant system into sludge.
Well, I guess then we should correct what we're calling this, because it's not the wrong antifreeze. It's not the wrong type. It's the incorrect quality of antifreeze. It's the incorrect brand of antifreeze. But to say that it's wrong is untrue.
It was your guy who said that it was wrong.
Yeah.
And I addressed that. He misspoke. When he said it was wrong in that sense, that this was the wrong brand. This isn't what you had paid for, but it would still work in your engines.
With this lower grade of coolant, do you recycle the coolant that you use for the domestic products?
Yes, we do. We use recycled products. Everything's tested
Okay.
though to make sure that there are no issues.
And in your opening statements, you said that there was no petroleum in the product that you tested.
Correct.
Because petroleum in the coolant would cause the exact kind of corrosion that we saw here.
Yes, it would.
So by delivering the lower grade domestic coolant that's designed for domestic use, not the industrial use, if there were traces of petroleum in there, that would lead exactly to the damage that my client realized. And without the chain of custody, seeing what sample you guys tested, not having any visibility into that process, we're concerned that this recycled product had traces of petroleum in it.
I can understand your concerns, but without any evidence of it, we got the product tested. We covered our end. You guys have the product in your engines. You had custody just like we had custody. You're asking us to trust you that the product is defective
Well,
when your company isn't willing to trust us that our tests were done properly, that our third party did a good job of testing the product.
We can only see the result. The engines were broken, so there has to be some reason.
and
And we have no way of knowing that you actually tested the same antifreeze that you say you do. So
Well, I guess to Max's point, that your mechanics flushed the engines of the incorrect brand of antifreeze. So you had plenty of antifreeze to test, and so I guess from our end, if you didn't trust our testing, it makes no sense why you didn't do your own independent testing, so therefore we would have comparative samples to verify. So like Max said, we believe that Foster Fuels had an independent company verify this. There was no petroleum in those products, and so short of trusting your mechanics, I don't know how that's helpful to us when we have verified scientific results. We have experts that say that this brand of antifreeze would not cause this type of corrosion in your trucks. So it's sort of a he said, she said at this point. We believe our expert, you don't believe our expert, you believe your maintenance guys. So I feel like we're at an impasse for how we're supposed to resolve this.
And we also don't know the age of these trucks. We don't know how they were maintained, and it's the same situation where we don't know every mechanic's history and records of your trucks, how old they were. There's lots of reasons they could have failed. So just linking them to us is the most convenient way, but it's not necessarily the fair way.
yeah, but these trucks, we have good maintenance on all the trucks. And it sounds strange that all of a sudden, at least 21 of the trucks that use your antifreeze, so all of a sudden breaks down.
and that the antifreeze was the only variable. Going back to your point about we had plenty of antifreeze at our disposal, our mechanics flushed it out immediately because it was destroying our engines, and it was eating through the rubber tubes. Now rubber is a petroleum product, so if it's corroding the rubber, we wouldn't have an untainted sample of the antifreeze because we had chunks of rubber in all of the antifreeze.
Well, except for the fact that you had 49 other vehicles that weren't showing those same types of corrosion, and I'm sure that you flushed the antifreeze out of them as well. So granted, the 21 that were having corrosion problems, you would have seen petroleum in them, but you shouldn't have seen petroleum in the other 49 that have not failed to date.
If they were, and I would argue that since they were leaking, that there was corrosion happening.
I agree.
Well, they've been leaking for how long? Were they leaking right at that very moment? I don't think so,
No.
because
2 days after the coolant was put in their system.
and I guess that is not the information that we have. That there were some trucks that began to leak immediately, there were some trucks that 4 days later began to leak, and then there's been a slowdown of the leakage since then.
And
So,
the only common variable they have is that they use your antifreeze.
well, except for the fact that again, we've never seen your maintenance logs, and so if those 21 trucks were due to have seals and gaskets replaced and they were already at the end of their lifespan, then maybe it's your maintenance that caused them to fail as opposed to our antifreeze. So again, we're at this impasse where it's not our maintenance, it's not our antifreeze.
I think that this is probably a good place to stop. I would like to do the caucus. I think that we are just kind of saying the same things, and it's becoming a little circular, and that's not going to help either if you get any kind of resolution. So what I would like to do is first meet with Foster, with their council, and then we'll meet for a few minutes and I'll time exactly how long it is, and I'll have the two of you step outside and feel free to keep talking to each other and try to get some things straight. Maybe it would be good for the two of you to think about if there was anything that maybe wasn't correct with the trucks, and maybe work on getting the timeline exactly figured out about the leakage, because there were some questions about that, and just kind of brainstorm and think about what we could do to break up this kind of block that we have. And then as I said, I'll time it, and then I'll bring the two of you in, and you'll get the same amount of time, and we'll talk about that. So if you two could just step out and then we'll have a quick chat. All right, Carrie and Max, let's talk. Is there anything that we're not saying? Is there anything that you don't want them to know, that is there any fault? Is there?
There's no fault that we can find, honestly. The product we tested came back without any impurities. So at this point, it just feels like, we don't know how old their trucks are. Their trucks could be 20 years old. And they're having these rebuilds and they want my company to pay for it. So, I mean, they're cars break down. And yes, it does seem like a coincidence that everything happened when they put in our antifreeze. That's why we got it tested. If we didn't suspect it being our problem ourselves, we wouldn't have cared to just say, no, it's your fault. But it did appear like it was our issue, so.
And again, we sell the same antifreeze to many other companies, and we've never had this problem before. And so if it really truly was a widespread issue, it would have reared its head by now. And to go to that point, Foster Fuels has an excellent reputation, and this, especially with some things their salespeople have said to our people, really impact our business relationships with other companies, which is troubling as well.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well,
this is private, so
we had the same salesperson that mistakenly said wrong antifreeze.
Okay.
Was at a conference trying to sell product, and one of Waltham's attorneys came up and said some disparaging remarks in front of this person that lost us the sale. Basically said, "Oh, you're selling more of that garbage antifreeze out to companies." So the remarks that they're throwing around are hurting our business.
Right.
And it's not just their problem, they're creating more problems outside of it when they keep saying, "Oh, well, we looked at our records, this is the only thing we could find." Well, how hard did you look? Was this the first thing they saw? Oh, it's gotta be the antifreeze.
Right, and we've shared our test results with them, and we've seen nothing come from the other side. And so at that point, you're just taking their word that there is nothing wrong. They have an excellent maintenance program, which is great, but we don't have any objective proof of that.
do you do any kind of testing on the products that you supply before they're sent?
Yes.
Just to make sure that everything is
I'm
the
trying to
same,
see how much is tested.
same grade and quality, all of that.
I do know that the process of filtration takes out the majority, or takes out anything that would be a potential issue. So again, there's always a chance that something can go wrong, but without any proof or evidence of that, other than just, we think it's your fault, I can't justify giving them money. Now, if they have something that shows, yes, that our product really was bad, then of course, I want to take responsibility for it.
So that again speaks to the company's reputation.
Exactly. But at the same time, if their trucks are,
Old,
At the end of their
poorly
life.
maintained, et cetera,
and these things were going to happen regardless, then it seems unfair that we're paying for their trucks company's maintenance.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that you want me to know before I just list the two of you? And
I
then
think obviously we don't want to go to trial.
Sure.
That definitely has some pretty big reputational impacts that Foster Fuels does not want to have to deal with. So if we can get something settled today, that would clearly be preferable. we have some money to play with without admitting fault in any way, shape, or form. We had, prior to this engagement, a good relationship with Waltham. They bought fuel from us for years and years and years, and just this one time purchased antifreeze. And so, not to say that there is a possibility of a business relationship anymore, because clearly that ship has sailed. Use a terrible metaphor, but
So there's no, you don't
And
want to
if they wanna buy
continue-
fuel with us again, that's fine, we'll sell them fuel, but they weren't a huge customer to begin with. It's, at this point, it's become more trouble than it's worth. And I'm willing to throw some money at it to go away, but I truly don't believe that anything was our fault. And unless they can give me some evidence or some reason to believe otherwise, I don't think we should pay anything. And we're certainly not gonna pay the $430,000 that they're asking for.
What's a figure that,
I mean, I wouldn't even consider half of that.
Okay.
It would have to be significantly less than half for us to consider settling.
And then would you mind asking them, when they originally calculated their damages, they used legal interest of 12% and now it's jumped to 24 somehow? That seems like a strange uptick. So if you wouldn't mind asking us about that, that'd be great.
okay,
So I think is that everything we have? All right.
that's it, then I'll ask the two of you to step out, and our talk was exactly 5 minutes, so that's
Okay.
good. So I'll call you back in in about 5
Right.
minutes. Just
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, did you guys have any thoughts about where we are?
Yes.
Yeah, so the damages that we were talking about for, the vehicles that haven't failed yet, the ones that were treated and leaked but haven't failed yet, those damages were determined by, an independent third party, the dealer that sells Waltham their trucks. So that dollar amount that he quoted was between $2,000 to $3,000
Per vehicle.
per vehicle.
Yes.
Do you purchase any parts from
We-
this person aside from when you initially purchased the vehicle?
I don't believe so. I'm
No, it's the word.
Do you
It's the
think
truck
that
dealer.
that $2,000 to $3,000 is reasonable, or do you think that might be an overshot for
Well,
for this person to make some
with
money?
with the possibility of a total cooling system failure, that would end up costing the purchaser $10,000 to overhaul. $2,000 to $3,000 seems like it's right in the correct ballpark.
And it was independent, so we
yeah.
had no interest in raising that amount, so.
Yeah, he doesn't work for Waltham. He just sells them trucks. So if anything, he might be more interested in having them fail and having
Yeah, so we don't have any reason to believe that
Right.
amount is too
So,
high, really.
I mean, we can adjust that dollar amount downward. Use the $2,000 number instead of the $3,000 number.
How many
There were
vehicles was that?
49 vehicles
So you're
that have yet to fail. So I mean, we could call it a cool 50,000, and drop that.
and this is 49 vehicles? Is that what you
Correct.
said? And then at 2,000 apiece?
Correct. So instead of asking for 150,000, for that was what we had in our revised request, where we dropped from the 565 to the 430. We figured $150,000 for the vehicles that have yet to fail but were treated. So that would adjust that down to $100,000 cost.
Okay.
So that brings our request down from 430 to 380.
Okay. What else did to discuss on that side. Is there anything that, do you have any information about the trucks, about their maintenance? Is there anything that
No,
can
we can
help
offer
us?
them, show them our maintenance logs, and they will show that we have good routines on our trucks. And we can, if that will help, they can improve that, and they can also look at the trucks, if that helps. But we don't have anything to hide from ourselves.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that might help us move forward?
Well, I mean, the fact that they're using recycled antifreeze, any traces of petroleum would cause the corrosion that we saw. And with the only variable linking all of these different vehicles being that they were treated incorrectly, I mean, they've got a duty of care to my client's company to provide the correct antifreeze. Their salesperson admitted verbatim that he delivered the wrong antifreeze. It caused damage to the vehicles. The duty was breached, but for putting the correct or the incorrect antifreeze in there, the vehicles had been operational. My client's been using Texaco antifreeze for years, and the vehicles have never showed this kind of corrosion. They've never showed this kind of leakage. So I mean, it seems like a res ipsa loquitur case where the issue speaks for itself. And the fact that they're not willing to admit any liability at all is pretty frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And I've been in this business for a long time, and I've never heard of anything similar. So for me, it's pretty clear that there was something wrong with their antifreeze. And
Well, based on the conversation that Carrie and Max and I just had, the company really values their reputation, and they said that if it could be shown that something was their fault, they most certainly wanted to take responsibility for that, to be able to maintain their good reputation in this business and in the market, but that they can't find anything, and what I'm trying to really figure out is where something went wrong, because I think that, I mean, obviously that would help everybody,
Right.
but it seems that it's the same. You know, they test it, and then
But-
there's this failure, and where is the weak link? But
the antifreeze, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the antifreeze they tested, we don't have any way of knowing that it was the same antifreeze fluid. So
And do you have any idea what happened to the antifreeze that was flushed from your vehicles?
It was disposed of
Yeah.
properly.
it was
And there
polluted. So we have
was there any testing done? Did your mechanics look at it, or really have any idea what could have been in it, if there was something in it that?
Well, it was the wrong color. The sales manager noticed that the antifreeze didn't look right. Foster's sales manager realized it didn't look right. So we flushed it, and polluted coolant has no resale value. It can't be recycled. It's worthless. So it was disposed of under company procedures, and should this go to trial, a chain of custody would be on Foster's shoulder to prove that the sample that they turned in to their independent and for independent analysis was in fact a sample from the batch that we returned to them. So the fact that they brought a sample of coolant to an expert, that's great, but we don't know that was the same coolant. And we just have to take them at their word that it is what it is, or what they're claiming it is. when we don't see any other explanation as far as how this damage could have happened other than due to the coolant.
When I bring them back in, would it be all right if I mentioned that you would be willing to let them view your maintenance records?
That's fine.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up and talk about before?
Discussing the chain of custody of what happened with that antifreeze after they picked it up. I mean, there were barrels of it.
And I have one question. They were a little concerned that in your initial submission of your costs, it was said that the legal interest was 12%, and then now they believe that it's listed at 24%.
That's correct.
Can you explain that?
That's what the mandatory legal interest is.
The 24.
24%.
So then, do you have any idea why it was initially listed at 12?
State law imposes simple interest at 12% per year on any judgment running from the date of the injury.
How long has this conflict been going on? Has it been 2 years?
2 years.
Okay. So I guess that would explain the
Change or something.
That
12%
must be it.
per year,
Yes.
and then now it's
12%
24.
per year, yes. So the initial claim was immediate and factored in the 12%. If we went to court today, it's been 2 years, so it would be 24%.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we should bring them back in. We went over a
Okay.
little bit, so I'll have to see if they would like to
Okay.
kind of fill in that time again. But if you could just have them come in, and then I'll ask them about. Well, we went over by just a couple minutes. If
Not a problem.
okay.
Thank you for your consideration.
No problem.
So there were a couple things that came out of this. We did discuss the 12% versus the 24%. And it seems that based on the law, there is a legal imposition of 12% interest per year. And this conflict has been going on for 2 years. So that would make overall 24%. And I think that
Right, so it would basically be 12% times
However
Whatever.
many years, correct.
600 and blah, blah, blah days.
Sure. Another thing that we discussed here is that they would be willing to turn over their maintenance records to have an expert review them and look
Yeah,
at
we
that.
don't have anything to hide, so if that would help your case, you
I think that both sides are willing to negotiate on the monetary issue. But I'm not sure if that can really happen until both sides feel that they've had a chance to see the records of the other side. Is that
I
correct?
think we would feel more comfortable having a third-party auditor look at the maintenance logs before we'd like to talk about any monetary settlement.
And we'd feel more comfortable if there was some kind of chain of custody of the sample. Do you have any additional information as far as who had possession of the barrels of leftover product from the time it was
I
picked
think
up?
we can get that to you.
Yeah, I mean, it just went straight from you to us, to the tester, so.
So we will be able to look at our records and see who had control of it, where it went.
I think that going forward, this is what we should do, and this is where I think we should leave it for today. But just by all of you coming here today, that is a good faith effort that you want to work this out. You know, both companies have a reputation to maintain, and that's obviously important to everybody. And it's important for everybody to not go to court, to be able to deal with this here and take care of it and move on with your businesses. And my understanding from both sides is that there's been a very long history of business together, and there doesn't seem to have been any dissatisfaction from either party with the other. So that's something to consider, that you've had this long relationship and that you might want to go forward and continue purchasing fuel and continue selling fuel. And we would like things to be as amicable as possible. So I suggest that we end here and that we schedule another mediation session to occur after both sides have had the opportunity to find out that information that they really would like. And for you, that would mean turning over your maintenance records, and for you, that would be answering this chain of custody issue.
And if we could get a listing of your fleet of trucks with the age too, that would help us in looking at the maintenance.
That's part of the maintenance
Okay.
records.
In addition to who worked on the vehicles and all that.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so if there are no questions and nothing else, we'll stop here and we will plan to resume in a few weeks once everything has
Okay.
been switched.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.